Hello, everyone. My name is Aiden, and this is AuthorQuest. Thank you so much for joining me as I join with my brother here, and we're going to talk about his channel, the things that he's been doing, and some of the other crazy stuff. So,
we've started
yeah.
quite the family of YouTube channels recently. The Quest YouTube channels.
The Questverse.
Yeah. Ooh, is that the thing?
I think that's the thing. It's the Questverse.
All right.
Writing that down.
Yes. Notes. Any good writer takes notes, right?
Exactly. Dude,
That's why I'm not a good writer.
You need to write more notes, Brendan. I've been actually, this is totally not any of the topics that we talked about talking about, but I'm going to talk about it now.
Sure.
I have been writing in a journal recently, in this last week, and I kid you not, it's like I haven't written down in a journal, like one journal, like I used to keep a bunch of scraps of paper and stuff together. I've been keeping one journal for a week, and it's already half full. It's crazy. Been loving it.
Yeah. I haven't journaled in a while, but when I do, so every year my birthday, I always want to basically spend that time alone, and then I generally end up journaling or something, and every time I do, I'm just like, I should do this more often, and then of course I never do.
Dude, I've been sticking with it, and I've been writing C page back here, the whole thing. It's been helping specifically my world building. I don't know if it would necessarily help my prose necessarily. I guess I could do prose. I could try out different things that I'd want to say, but yeah, anyway, so journaling. Doing a lot more.
There you
go. Okay, so I've got a couple of questions for you. You've been doing some interesting things with Notion, and yes. I have to admit I've been ignoring it because of the immensity that
because if your brother says to do something, then the most obvious choice is to ignore it.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I just know that if I dip my toe in, I'm gonna fall down the rabbit hole a little bit, and so but you have finally convinced me to actually try Notion, to actually jump into it and actually put my stories into it and actually use it. So tell me a little bit about Notion, why you use it, and a little bit about Storybook, Novelist.
Yeah. So the reason I like Notion for writing, now I'll say a caveat first. And so in my template, Storybook Master Novelist, I have built in where you can actually write your stories and your books, like a manuscript feature in there. But I will also be the first to admit it's not the best for actual writing. So it's not a word processor per se. I think they're building in some, they're getting there with it, but it wasn't originally built for that kind of thing.
Okay.
All that being said, everything else you want to use it for writing, I think it's far superior than almost everything else.
Okay.
The reason I like it is because it's infinitely customizable. So originally I started using it because using it for task management, managing your life, you can do calendars, you can do all sorts of things. It's a massive thing.
And that's what I remember you initially doing it. You're like, oh yeah, I've got Notion, it helps me keep all my stuff together and everything. Because you've always been into making your life more efficient. And then all of a sudden you're like, I have a thing for Storybook, or thing for writing. It's called Storybook. And I was like, oh.
Yeah, so I'll get to the evolution of Storybooks. I actually have 3 templates that are all kind of in that. But so basically, I realized, as I started getting into Notion, you realize there's this whole community of people making Notion templates for anything, tracking books you read, to tracking your garden, to tracking your tasks, to literally everything. And so I thought maybe I could build a custom tool, because and I've used all the other writing programs. I use Scrivener, which Scrivener would be my go-to. Otherwise, I love Scrivener a lot. Ulysses, there's Bear, Dabble. Like, there's all sorts of writing programs out there.
Mm-hmm.
But none of them, because of the size of the story that I'm wanting to tell, felt like they could really, like, help me wrangle it all into one thing. And so, and even like having a notebook, like, I change my mind a lot, as you know, listening to me or having watched me write for so long. So I change my mind all the time.
I've never seen you change your mind. Never. Yeah. You've never done that.
Yeah. So like, just like a normal notebooks, like I just ended up with a bunch of useless notebooks because like the whole notebook is like, I don't know, none of this applies anymore, you know?
Right.
So Notion seemed to provide a solution where I could build custom tools for myself. And then I thought, hey, maybe other people would like it too. So I started with just, I just made a storybook, was what I called it. And all the template is it's like one little database. You can put your book in it, like your title, and then it just lets you outline like a simple 3-act story structure. That's all it does. It literally does nothing else. Then, as I learned more about Notion, then I built the next version, which I call Storybook Pro. And it has the same functionality from Storybook, where you can outline multiple books in 3-act story structure. But then I added in some limited world building stuff. So like tracking some characters and, you know, items and magic stuff, but like nothing, just very basic. And then I added the ability to track chapters, so you could attach chapters to your book. So you could essentially do like your story structure for the whole outline for the whole book, and then you could start outlining the chapters. So that's all that is. Then I decided I could get even crazier. And I built what I call a Storybook Master Novelist, which is my biggest template. And essentially, it can track multiple series, multiple books. You can track all of your chapters within those books. You can link everything together, the world building, like, so it's kind of designed as a workflow. So you start in the brainstorm section, then you go to the outline section, then you go to, you know, Right. As you're doing the brainstorming and outlining, it starts collecting all of the world building elements in the world building section for you to like go back to later. So like a lot of times when I create stuff, I always just like, I'm writing or I'm coming up with an idea, and then I'm like, I need a character, and then I just blurt out a character name, and now that character exists. So with this, what you can do is you can put them in on that chapter, and then it'll show up later, so you can go like to the world building section and flesh that character out when you're ready.
Right.
But it collects everything for you as you brainstorm and outline, so that all of the information you need is with you when you need it.
So what you're saying is, when I'm writing in my journal here, and I'm going through and I'm writing idea after idea after idea, and then I have an idea for another thing, and I just write it in the margins of the current page that I'm on, and then I don't have it linked back here.
Lame.
You're saying you have a way to actually organize it?
Yes. The idea was that, because being creative is messy, very, very messy, and I believe that writing a story is the messiest form of creation. So like, because there's infinite possibilities with a story. It literally can go anywhere you want it to. So, whereas like music, it's like if you're writing a punk rock song, eventually it's like you're either punk rock or you start switching genres, you know, like, right. You know, so that, but to me, writing a story, and especially writing a series, is the messiest form of creativity. And so it was kind of a way for me to like, if I just start dumping all of my crap into this thing, it will start organizing it for me, and then I can get to it when I'm ready. That was essentially where I'm at.
Okay, yeah, I got you. And I've looked at those kinds of things before. Like Scrivener is a great example. I bet you could come up with something similar to this, but from what I understand, I'm not even going to pretend that I understand anything about this.
But you can also, like, you know, the great thing about Notion, so like Scrivener, for example, I really love Scrivener, but Scrivener is kind of designed one way. So like, if you don't work the way that Scrivener works, then it doesn't really work for you. Notion, what's great about Notion and this template is that you can just keep customizing it. So like, if you get my template and it works 80% for you, you can change you can move it all around and change it so it works for you 100%. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'd probably do that.
So
you would get it, and then you would be like, "What did you do to my template?" And I'd be like, I made it better.
But that's what's great about it. Like, everyone can you can get it as what it is, and then you can change it. Whereas like if you buy Scrivener or Ulysses or whatever, it just kind of is what it is. You can't really change it much.
Right.
Yeah.
I like it. So you sent me a link to download it, and I'm going to be doing that here soon. And I will definitely give you my thoughts, and we could probably talk about it here.
Yeah. Well, and if you want, you can put the link to it in the description below, and there's a discount code WQ15. We'll get you 15% off if anyone wants it.
Oh, there you go.
And I have so many videos on my channel going through it. So like, if you want to look at that stuff before you look at it or whatever, got a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Awesome. I'll let you know how it goes. And maybe I'll be able to put everything from my notebook into it and actually make sense of my life.
Which is the hardest form of anything.
Exactly. Cool. Well, everything with Notion is great, and I think you've been having a lot of success with it, and a lot of success in your own story, because this is Author Quest and your writing quest, and this is all about, at the end of the day, we're trying to get our projects out there and do the author thing, right? So with that, all great authors are the culmination of what they read, what they consume. So what are you reading and watching?
Yeah, so right now, reading. So as Aiden knows this, and anyone who has watched my channel knows this, I'm the slowest reader on the planet. So when you mix slowest reader on the planet with I love really large fantasy novels, I end up reading like 3 books a year if I'm lucky. So, but I still read. So obviously I've got my shelf of many books here. Actually, the one I'm really excited about, there it is, Umi the Nightmare Painter. That was the second secret project for Brandon Sanderson.
Oh, yeah.
And I think I'm going to sneak that one in next because it looks really awesome. So right now I'm reading the 4th book of Wheel of Time, so Shadow Rising. I've never read the series before. I've started it once and I restarted it. It's really great. I really love it a lot. It's one of those, like, it's kind of like, why didn't I discover this sooner kind of a thing? But I'm glad I'm discovering it now. But it's a lot and it's very long, and the writing is sometimes tough to read. So like, it's weird because I'm struggle to sit down and read it because I love the story, but it's hard to read. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's not that I don't want to read it, but I also don't want to read it.
Right. Currently, I'm reading Warbreaker with also Brandon Sanderson, and I have to admit, next up on my reading list was Wheel of Time, but I was very intimidated by it, so I just did a nice little one-off book instead. Yeah. That's only like a couple hundred pages.
So this is Robert Jordan. Brandon Sanderson just finished the last 3 books.
Right.
Yeah. But after that, I think I'm going to read Yumi the Nightmare Painter, and then I'm going to read, I got to finish Rhythm of War, by with Stormlight Archive, Brandon Sanderson.
Gotta finish it, man.
Yeah, I know. You and Logan just finished it, and now you're like yelling at me about it. And then so I haven't really. I need to just keep plugging away at the Wheel of Time books. I'm trying to get better at not. I'm like the king of not finishing a book, so I am trying to get in. Like, I need to just finish Wheel of Time. I need to get all the way through it and just finish it.
Right.
Because otherwise, Brady's really gonna have my head. That's our older brother. He is a Wheel of Time fanatic, and if I don't finish it, he's gonna freak out.
He discovered it last year, and he's already read it twice.
Yeah, like maybe 2 years ago, and he's read it 2 or 3 times now. It's pretty nuts. But he drives a lot and he listens to it in the car, so that's
So he cheats.
He cheats. But hey, I did that. I mean, I that's the only way I can get through the books too, is by like reading and listening. So
yeah,
Dude, I liked. Go ahead.
Oh no. Well, I like reading with 3 times speed with the book in front of me, and I just.
That's actually I really get a lot of like. I really comprehend that well when I do that.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Like, it helps. I comprehend the book really well if I listen to it and read it.
There's something about seeing the actual words.
Yeah, it helps you focus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What else are you looking into?
So, other things got going on. So I've been really, I don't really want to talk about this. We talked about this before, but with the state of all the big properties like Star Wars, Marvel, DC are just kind of
a little meh right now.
Yeah. There's some good things. I don't want to be a hater. I don't want to, like, I always want to have hope that it will get better. So, like, I always will hope, but it's still like, I don't know how they're going to save it, kind of a thing. So I'm really looking into a lot of independent creators right now. Not all independent, but some. And so one big one is my hat, Ripaverse. That's a big one I'm really into. I've actually got I just posted review for item number 1 on my channel.
Nice.
And they just put out their second book. What's really cool about them is that like, they started the first campaign and they were trying to raise just $100,000, and they raised $3.7 million. And then in the second book, they have this week left, but they're raised so far like $2.3 million. So like, clearly that indicates to me people are ready for independent creators.
I think people are ready for change.
Yeah, and so there's that. There's Ripaverse. One of my favorite YouTubers that I watch quite a bit, Den of Nerds, Josh Lucas is his name. He just launched Kickstarter for his comic book called Unity, so you definitely should go check that out. I think he's trying to raise $50,000, and he's already at like $23,000 or something, and it's been a day. So, yeah. So again, I think people are really ready for independent creation. And so he's got a comic book coming out, but that probably won't come out until next year, I think. And then not independent, but still amazing is Rebel Moon, which they just dropped a trailer for that today as of this recording, and I've watched it like 6 times.
Yeah, you just showed it to me right before we sat down.
Yeah.
You were like, dude, before we get on, I have to show you this. And I don't know anything that happened or went on in it. I remember you kind of talking about Rebel Moon at one point. You were like, dude, there's this new thing coming out. And I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. Watching the trailer, I'm super hype about it now, and I'm still kind of processing it. I don't know anything that was happening, and I'm excited.
Well, so I saw like they put out like 1 or 2 teasers, and I saw the first teaser, and I'm like, okay, that looks kind of cool. And then it's Zack Snyder's making it for Netflix, and I'm like, okay, like I personally, while the DCEU stuff wasn't all my favorite, I think he had a better grasp on it than I think what's going to happen coming up with James Gunn. But sorry, hot take. Think what you want, but that's my opinion about that. So I like Zack Snyder as a filmmaker. He hasn't always had the best movies, but I think when he does do a good one, he really hits it out of the park. So yeah, I saw a teaser for Rebel Moon. I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. And then I've just kind of kept reading about it and learning stuff. And then I got really hyped. And then I saw the trailer today and I was like, I'm sold. I'm in. I'm in. So do you want me to tell you the story of it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, tell me.
So he pitched it to Star Wars. So I guess he's had the idea for this story for like 20 years. And he originally pitched it 15 years or so ago, maybe 10 years, like right around the time Disney bought Star Wars. He pitched it to Lucasfilm as a Star Wars story.
Okay.
And they rejected it. They said, no, we're not going to do that. And so he just kept iterating it and turning it into his own property. And now we're getting what we're getting. And so I didn't realize it was going to be 2 parts either. So that was cool from the trailer today. So they're going to do part 1 is coming out in December and part 2 is coming out in April. And so it's like, and they're probably going to be like 3 hours long. Like they're going to be super, but this was even cooler. After the movies come out, I think there's already a game in development and they're going to be launching like novels and comic books and like they're going to make it this huge property.
Right.
With all this tie-in stuff right away.
So you think they need some fan fiction writers in there too? Do you think they need some help with that?
I think Zack Snyder should hire us to write some stories for it.
That's true.
Saying that would be a thing. But so now that I say it's related to Star Wars, do you see the similarities? Because there's like those like lightsaber type swords and there's spaceships but then there's also like a griffin.
Right, there's some fantasy elements to it that look very like old.
Yeah, it's honestly it's a really great mix of like Star Wars and Harry Potter, and then like a little bit of superhero.
It also kind of feels like. Did you ever watch? It was on Apple TV Plus, The Foundation.
Foundation. Yeah, I haven't watched all of it, but
it kind of has that feeling to me a little bit as well.
Well, Foundation's an adaptation of Isaac Asimov, right?
Right, yeah. And I just found that out. I didn't know that those two were connected until recently. Who was I listening to? I was listening to a podcast, and they mentioned Foundation by Isaac Asimov, and I was like, wasn't that the robot guy? I was like,
I think, he came up with the laws of robotics or whatever.
Whatever. Yeah. So I wasn't excited about Rebel Moon until you showed that to me, and now I'm probably going to go home after this and look into it, and I mean, I got to become a proper nerd of it.
Yeah. No, I'm going to probably, I need to go, watch the trailer a bunch more and get, I'm just super pumped for it. Right. I can just tell, like when I watched that trailer today, I got chills every time I watch it, and I think that just speaks to, we're being starved for good stories right now. We just really want some good stories.
And Star Wars is a good story. And that's the other thing. Star Wars, Marvel, they're all good stories, except lately it's just kind of been meh. And I think the old stuff is always going to hold up. And I love Thor, love Iron Man, love Luke Skywalker, all that stuff. It's just, if they aren't going to do good stories with those characters anymore, then they need to stop. They need to let the good stories be good stories.
Well, and that's a good kind of segue into actually talking about some writing to me, which is that they're not necessarily focusing on character-driven stories anymore. They're just it feels like they're not. I don't even know how to explain it. The first Iron Man movie is good because it's a character study about Tony Stark.
Right.
Yeah. And it feels like everything else really is, it's got some of that, but it's mostly just flat to me. And then there's some weird things where like Boba Fett, for instance, isn't even the main character of his own show. And like Mando season 3, like he's not really the lead character in his own show. Like just some weird stuff like that. So
where it's like they're trying to make merchandise opportunities, not, you know, making good character. Boba Fett. Okay. So I watched your recent interview with, what was his name?
Tony from Star Wars Sith.
Star Wars Sith. Okay, so I listened to you guys. You guys were talking. I was like, yep, agree with that. I think that. Oh gosh, it was just right on the tip of my tongue. What were we just talking about? I just lost it.
Character-driven stories.
Character-driven stories. Oh, Boba Fett is a villain.
Yes.
Boba Fett is a bad guy.
At best, he's an anti-hero. At best.
Right. At best. He's beloved, so therefore he needs to... I'm okay with him being a bad guy. But what happened was, in the beginning of Boba Fett, they just made him out to be this good guy. You know,
right.
He came out of the Sarlacc, they did a time jump ahead, he's a good guy, and then they tried to back it up with backstory. No, he was a bad guy. And they didn't show that. Like, if you play any of the old video games or stuff like that, he's on the Empire's side.
Right.
So anyway, that's my take. He shouldn't have been a good guy.
No, I agree. So, just because I definitely don't want to belabor the point about all that. So about Rebel Moon. So the other thing that I thought about that story. So one of the things as a writer, I feel like is I struggle with myself because I'm not writing it fast enough, or I feel like I'm not writing it. Like I need to have the book done and out tomorrow.
Right.
You know? But then when you hear a story about Rebel Moon, where he's had the story in his head for 20 years and he's just now getting it to a place where it's ready, that gives me a little bit of relaxation because it's not that I don't want to get it done, but I definitely we've talked about this so many times before offline about, I don't want to just write anything. Like if I'm gonna put myself out there and take the time to actually craft a story, I want it to be very good. And I want it to be big and impactful and, you know, have a purpose, not just for doing it. So to me, it's like, it's okay. It's okay to take the time to flesh everything out and really make sure. Because, I mean, I've been working on mine already for over 10 years. And what you see it now as versus what it started as is
very different.
I wouldn't say wildly different, but wildly more expansive, for sure.
Yeah, and more detailed, I think, and you should have more of it figured out.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that you and I specifically, I think we're scared of being lazy. You know, when really setting it down and not knowing how it all works is a part of the process.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you have to experience a little bit more life to get those details and be able to plug them in. Like lately, I was in a big slump in the last 5 weeks or so. Like I haven't been writing anything, and then all of a sudden, this past week, I had an idea, wrote it down in a journal, and then all of a sudden, it's just been ballooning, and I've been actually skyrocketing ahead. You know, so yeah. Well,
and that's, you know, you have to let your ideas marinate, and I think you have to let them kind of, I love seeing those things about, like, you know, you direct the story and all that, and I'm like, not really. The story kind of directs the writer in a lot of ways, because I feel like I think we were talking about this over the weekend, where like my original story was going to be 3 novels. I was just going to write a trilogy. I had an idea for a trilogy, and now it's expanded to a 13-book series. I've got ideas for like comic books and short stories and standalone novels, all sorts of stuff. But the main thing is that 13 books. And I was telling you over the weekend about I briefly started having ideas of like, oh, we could actually do this and this and this and expand it in some other ways. And then I felt like, no, that's wrong. That doesn't feel right. Mm-hmm. Whereas before, every time I tried to contain my story in those 3 novels, it was like, this just doesn't feel right. Something's not right. And then I was like, maybe it's 2 trilogies. Then we went to 6. And that felt a little better. And then I kept coming like, no, maybe this is, and then it kept expanding. So like, I feel like I've hit a very natural, like I found the story, if that makes sense. I haven't found all the details, but I have found the like beginning, middle, end arc.
Right.
And
this is the story.
It feels complete from beginning to end.
You figured out your Anakin Skywalker story. That's like you see Anakin from a child all the way to Anakin dying in the 6th one, and redeeming himself.
Yeah. And anytime before I would like finish, like I finished an outline for the trilogy and I was like, this doesn't feel like it's ended. Like there's something else to be done. Or then I was like, and it actually doesn't feel like that's where the story starts either. So then I went backwards. So actually my original book 1 was, is now book 7 of the series. So I have 4 trilogies and then a novel at the end to wrap it all up. But
easy.
Yeah, easy peasy. So
nice. I like it.
That's where I'm at with my writing anyways.
And where you started, I just think that you've become a lot more sophisticated as a writer. And you may not say it, but your prose has gotten better significantly, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree with you. I definitely don't. I still don't like it. I still think it sucks. But it sucks less than before.
Yeah.
Well, because when I first started writing, like I was working in a factory and I was doing a job that did not use my brain. And so naturally, as someone who is creative, it just started, like I just started thinking of the story in my head. But I had never once, ever before, thought about writing anything. And so when I actually convinced myself to open a Word document and write something, it was like, it was just really awkward. Because like I never had done that before.
You were a punk rocker bassist at the time.
I was all music and stuff. I didn't write or anything. So that has changed a lot. But
yes.
But I've also stopped and restarted everything many times.
Right.
Yeah.
How far we've come.
How far we have come.
Also, and this just popped into my head, Ahsoka's coming out soon-ish.
Yes. Like today, as of this recording. We're recording on Tuesday, the day that it comes out.
Wow, I gotta be honest, I've been kind of sequestered away. I've been moving, actually, is what I've been doing. So I haven't had YouTube downloaded onto my phone. I've been ignoring the world, trying to get everything set up and getting moved in and everything. So that's crazy. It still feels like it's months off for me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it won't wrap up until like the beginning of October. It's like 8 episodes, so they're doing 2 tonight and then once a week and for 6 more weeks. So it'll be a while.
All right. Very good. Well, enough time for me to catch up.
Yeah, so I've been pretty burnt out on all the Star Wars stuff, which I've mentioned before. But I just keep having hope. But I will say, this is my last hope, for sure.
Yeah, this is it.
Well, let's look at the facts. They haven't really been able to get anything that, since I will give them Force Awakens. I think when that one first came out, it was pretty much universally loved. We had some questions. It was kind of like a repeat of A New Hope or whatever, but mostly the hype was real for that.
Right.
Yeah. Then the Last
Jedi
delivered
on the hype.
And I think they delivered. Then the Last Jedi came out, and pretty much since Last Jedi, It's been very, very up and down at best. Most of it's been not great. So this is where I'm at with Ahsoka. They're saying it's Rebels season 5, which Rebels is one of the best Lucasfilm, like, it's like Clone Wars and Rebels. They're like so good, you know?
Oh, yeah, totally.
So it's Rebels season 5. It's written almost exclusively by Dave Filoni, who is the direct George Lucas apprentice.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the way that I feel is like, if even he cannot get it done, then who can?
Right.
You know.
And who's to say? The other thing is, if the property doesn't do well, eventually Disney's going to sell it, right?
Well, what else are they? I mean,
so
what are they going to do?
Yeah, I'm wondering if at some point it gets sold, and then hopefully Dave Filoni can still be involved, and then he can make the Star Wars that he wants to make, and maybe that would be the Star Wars that we need.
Yeah. I don't think they need to get sold. I think Lucasfilm needs to go back to being an independent company.
Or that.
I'm not sure. George Lucas is definitely one of my heroes, and he's not one of my heroes because he created Star Wars. He's one of my heroes because of how he treated the creation of Star Wars and how he was when he owned Lucasfilm.
Right.
Selling Lucasfilm was the biggest mistake he ever made. Because it goes against all of the principles he had as a creator.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So I think the best course of action is for Lucasfilm to go back to being their own independent company and then just doing what they want.
Yeah. But I mean, how are they going to do that? How are they going to buy themselves back?
Exactly. I don't know. So here's the next question. So I have two questions for you. The first question is, and this can be brief, but
yeah,
even if Ahsoka is super fire, it's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
It's everything we wanted and hoped and dreamed.
Right.
Can it actually save the brand at this point?
I think that if you want to save the brand, you have to redeem Skywalker, the name of Skywalker, and I think that they totally butchered it. And so I really think the only way that they save the brand is either they totally scrap the sequel trilogy and start over with Skywalkers, or Luke or Leia had a secret child, and then they can continue it that way and do a different thing.
Yeah,
but that's because Star Wars isn't Ahsoka. Star Wars is Qui-Gon Jinn with Anakin Skywalker destroying the Jedi Knights, and then the Last Hope succeeding.
Yeah,
right. And so we didn't see the Last Hope succeed.
We saw the other Last Hope eventually succeed.
Yeah, we saw the other Last Hope eventually succeed. But if they don't do, Rey has rebuilt the entire Jedi Order, which Luke Skywalker should have done, I don't know. I don't know if it can be,
but if Ahsoka is great, I'm just gonna put it in the George Lucas canon, and then that's good enough for me.
Yep. Yeah. I really do think that they've botched it so much, so Marvel and Star Wars and a lot of the other properties and stuff. I think that you're right. I think that independent creators are the way to go. It's the people that helped make those that, like, because that's the other thing. I know that there are so many people that worked on those projects that put their heart and soul into it.
Absolutely.
And, right? They're the ones that, like, are kind of the victims in this because they can't win. The fans hated the movie, and they did everything that they could and probably made the best decisions that they could.
Yep.
And so this is a chance for those people to make their stories.
Yes. Yep. So here's the next question, and I know this answer for me, but I'm interested in your answer. If you wrote your books, they release, smash hit, You're going to make a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Would you sell or would you do it independently?
That's tough. Because here's the thing, is part of in order to let something be what it needs to be, you have to let go of it, you know? When you love something, you let it go, Brendan. But at the same time...
Disagree.
At the same time, I think if I did it, I would want to just keep it myself and build it up slowly, and eventually make a deal, but try to keep creative control. Mm-hmm. And that's the other thing. If they don't want to give me creative control, then I can just not give it to them, you know? So I definitely wouldn't sell it to this version of Hollywood that's out right now.
Yeah. I used to not be sure, and the more that we've gotten into Disney Star Wars, Disney Marvel, Warner Brothers really screwing up DC, I won't sell mine ever. I think, and if I do, it will only be for funding. Like, I won't sell it. I will, like, a studio could come along and help fund the movie, like fund the project, but they have no creative control. They have no I'm willing to share profits if someone helps me back it, but I'm not willing to share creative control. So say Universal came, I published a book, it's huge, it's a big hit, and we were gonna make a movie. If Universal came by and said, we want to help fund it and share the profits, totally willing to share profits and be like, we'll give, if you put in your $200 million to fund this movie, we will pay you back for that money plus some interest. That, I'm totally fine with that. But they have no creative control in the process. It's all.
But that here's the thing: if they're gonna do that, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here. If they're gonna do that, then you need to say, this is going to be the movie that we're gonna make. This is gonna be the story that we're gonna tell, and you need to be sure about that. And then you need to say, if you want to fund this, this is what we're making. We don't believe in this, that, or the other ideology. It's gonna be, no, we're making this movie, this story.
And that's where I think the dynamic in Hollywood needs to change, and publishing and everywhere. It makes no sense to me that you would write a book and then you sign up with a publishing company, and then me as the full creator of the book only gets 10%.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Why should I put my love and effort and care into something and then just get a pittance?
Right.
So that's where the narrative needs to switch. These studios they're not the creative force behind this stuff.
Yeah, they're the monetary force.
They're the monetary force, but that shouldn't give them. It should be more like an investment. I'm a stock, and you're going to invest money in my stock, and it's my job to make sure that pays off. Now, I understand in the world of investing, if you invest in a stock, you get a say, all that kind of stuff. But I truly think the best way forward for creatives in general is to get rid of the influence of all of these high-level studio executives that really don't know what they're doing, because it's clear that they don't know what they're doing.
Right. And we do, Brendan, and that's why we're making our YouTube channels, because we're going to be those creators that change everything, because it's the era of the small creators.
Well, yeah, there's all these creators. How can it be that a bunch of random YouTubers can all agree on a story that's better than what the people with the money put out?
Right.
What
we're saying isn't brand new. The other people have said this before us.
Yeah. So that's where I'm putting my money behind independent people, and why I will remain independent myself.
Yeah, I like it.
So I'd rather sell 100 books to people on my own than 1 million books and only get to play a small part in that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So.
Totally agree. Well, anyway, this has been awesome. Brendan, you have been great. This is Author Quest, and my name is Aiden. This is Author Quest. Thank you so much for joining us. And with that, Brendan, shall we do it together?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1.
Huzzah!
Huzzah! Awesome.